Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to our mock draft series. We are now in April. The draft is getting closer and closer, a couple weeks away now, and we're going to up the ante to a 4-round mock draft this go around, primarily because we want to kind of cover more bases as we get a bit closer. Now, the Dallas Cowboys have not made any moves since the initial free agency, so, as you guys may know, this could change because they like to do things, later in the process. However, there is also a possibility that they're done and, we just got to work with what we have. So we kind of have to keep that in mind going forward. So I think before we begin, if you could like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, that'd be fantastic. Doesn't take too long to do, and it helps the channel out tremendously. So now the question is, what are our needs right now? Have my needs changed? Like, what's going on there? So for me, I still think offensive line is the biggest need. Your left guard situation, do you feel comfortable with the Connor McGovern there? If you don't, then you need to get that, taken care of. Now, I do believe that the Dallas Cowboys are fine with Tyler Biadasz. Me personally, I think you can do better than him. You're going to have a competition with him and Matt Farniak, but that's besides the point. I think that you can look at this draft as a possibility to upgrade your center position as well if a proper player falls to you. But I think that given Tyler's position, I think that he can hold his own more than your left guard. However, Tyler needs to learn how to call the blocks more so, because he doesn't do that. He does not call the protections. He doesn't call, the blocking stuff. So that's a big problem. So he needs to work on that. So offensive line number one. I would say that your number two must address his linebacker at this point. The Dallas Cowboys need to get a long-term answer outside of Micah Parsons and possibly Jabril Cox. Because we don't know what is going to happen with Jabril Cox. Is he the real deal? If he is, then awesome. Then, you kind of solved that. But you need to give Micah some reinforcements so he's not just a one-man army. Also, on top of that, by getting a linebacker, you kind of give him more space to free roam. Okay? Now, next is wide receiver. Wide receiver is the next must-address position. The Dallas Cowboys, yes, I do get it. They have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. They brought in James Washington, but you need another young guy in there, okay? The fact is that you are probably going to be without Michael Gallup for the first couple weeks, but this shouldn't be like a short-term, but more so a long-term possibility. What if Michael Gallup flames out? What if James Washington isn't who we think he is? Stuff like that. I think CeeDee Lamb is fine, but you're going to need to get another young guy in that mix. Keep churning and burning wide receivers that you feel are not fits. But, I still think you should have kept Cooper, but that's just my opinion. I would say after wide receiver, it's edge. The Cowboys should not take an edge rusher. I'd be tremendously upset if they took an edge rusher. Unless it's like one of like the very good edge rushers, you should not be taking one with your first set of picks, okay? The big thing is you need to address the other positions first, unless the edge is the best player on the board, okay? I'm cool with taking an edge on, and this is the kind of the same thing with a lot of these other positions. You want to make sure that you're taking the best player on the board, okay? So there's that, and then finally, I would say that kicker is your final must address, but I think that you can take care of that later. This isn't like a thing you got to do. Secondary needs, I still think that safety, tight end, and defensive tackle are the secondary needs. You could throw in running back there, but I'm not going to put that in there, primarily because I do not believe the Cowboys will take a running back. So, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with our 4-round mock draft. Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. So look, I get it. Why did you take a wide receiver over a tackle guard, some form of the combination there? You know why? Because there were 3 other receivers to take advantage of and only 1 offensive lineman on the board that, in my opinion, is a first-round grade, and that was Kenyon Green. But when you have a guy like Chris Olave, who I'm very high on in this draft, you have to take him. He's the best player on the board at that point in time. You had guys like Jahan Dotson and Treylon Burks also on the board. Now, I do like both Dotson and Burks. Why am I taking Chris Olave? Because he's the most polished route runner in the entire draft, and based off of what the Dallas Cowboys want in terms of how they run things, that's what they want. They want polished route runners. And, you know, whether that's just a saying or not is another thing, but I think with taking another receiver, regardless if it's Olave or another one, it signals to me that Michael Gallup needs to make sure that he does his job, because I think a lot of people had this same sentiment when we took CeeDee Lamb. Okay, you're either going to roll with CeeDee or Michael Gallup or CeeDee and Amari Cooper. The Cowboys chose the first, and here we are. So with taking Chris Olave, there's no shadow of a doubt that because CeeDee Lamb wears number 88, the Joneses want to keep him here in Dallas. However, Chris Olave, I would say, puts more pressure on Michael Gallup than it does CeeDee Lamb. And I think for CeeDee Lamb, he's set to have an explosive third year. You know, I think that him easing into the league and quietly establishing himself as one of the best receivers on the team will allow himself to flourish, especially if you can get another guy in this mix, you know, to kind of give him more opportunities to really not be super, you know, really covered or anything like that, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think Chris Olave would be the pick here. I'm shocked that he made it to 24. I think that in most other drafts that I've seen, he goes in the top 15. If he's there at 24, the Cowboys would be stupid not to take him. Now, if Kenyon Green's there and they take him and Chris Olave was on the board, that's fine. I get it, because I do like Kenyon Green. However, going any other position group, I personally feel would be a disservice for the Dallas Cowboys. So Chris Olave is the pick at 24, plain and simple. Jamari Sailor, guard, Georgia. So if you've been following me through this draft process, you should know I'm very high on Jamari Sailor. I think that he is one of the better guard prospects in this draft that will be available later. And, you know, if you really like Kenyon Green or the Zion Johnsons of the world, the next best thing would be Jamari Sailor. I think what he brings to the table, like if you're someone that's like, I really like position flexibility, Jamari Sailor has that. Okay, he's, you know, similar to Kenyon Green, he's had that, he played pretty much every position type of thing. And you taking him here, basically, you plug him in at left guard and you're good to go. But when you look at who else was on the board, okay, so you had Chad Mumel, for example, Nicholas Piet-Frere, a couple of other guys on the board that, realistically speaking, I would be okay with passing up on. But, you know, you have Dylan Parham, Ed Ingram. I personally like Jamari Sailor more than the other guys, but I think that what this means is that if the Cowboys go this route and they take pick 56 and get a lineman, specifically an offensive lineman, I think they're not going to draft anymore. And that should be the case. I mean, you know, the Cowboys have to do better at taking linemen later in the draft. And look, you got Tyler Biadasz with the fourth round pick. And look, you know, as much as he gets trashed on, and I'm not saying that he's the greatest at what he does, he is solid for what you got in terms of that value. And that's what's key, is you need to get value players. Yeah, you would love to get all pros across the entire line, but the Dallas Cowboys need to do better at getting guys that are off the street in the later rounds. So you got that with Terrence Steele. Now you kind of go with Jamari Sailor here, and then at center, you kind of roll with what you got there. You know, you got your left tackle situation. I understand you got to figure that out, but right guard, you're set. But yeah, the Cowboys take a Jamari Sailor here, and they continue building up this roster. All right, let's move on to the third round pick. Fedarian Mathis, interior defensive lineman, Alabama. So, what do we do here at pick 88? It's really important that the Cowboys get this pick correctly, because there's a massive gap between pick 88 and their next selection. This is when those comp picks start to kick in. So you kind of have to look at, all right, is there a guy that at the end of this third, early fourth, that I can, you might see a reach here, which is fine. I mean, all things considered. But for me, Fedarian Mathis, I like. I think that he fits well. And on top of that, you continue to add young players. You're going to have some guys coming up on their contracts. And, with the one-year deals you're doing, you need to get a young guy in there. Because, Neville Gallimore can't do it alone, guys. Nor can Osa Odigizua and all these other individuals. So, get another young guy, for Dan Quinn to build upon and go forward from there. There really wasn't anybody else on the board that I would feel comfortable with taking outside of him. Maybe Troy Anderson, but this kind of was this is who I think is the best, and let's just move forward. So yeah, Fedarian Mathis being the pick here. Let's move on to the fourth round, which will be an interesting pick. Jelani Woods, tight end, Virginia. So yes, I'm still wanting the Cowboys to take a tight end, but there's a couple things that they could do if they really like some of these guys. They did a 30 visit on Jalen Weidermeyer, who tested so poorly that he's probably going to go undrafted, which I don't have a problem with. Hell, if you feel like you like the guy, take him in the 5th or 6th round. I could give a damn less. Like, that pick's going to go to anybody else. But I think that if Jelani Woods is there and pick in the 4th to 5th round, you kind of have to pull the trigger on him. Do I like him more than Jalen Weidermeyer? Yeah, I really do like Jelani Woods over Jalen Weidermeyer, but if he's not there, I'll settle for Weidermeyer. I think the biggest problem with Weidermeyer is that he tested so poorly. It's kind of like that Orlando Brown situation. When you test so poorly, you drop that far in the draft, when if you test just decently, you'd be solid. And I think that if you're the Cowboys, what you really have to do is you have to make an executive decision on what you want to do with this pick. Do you want to take, again, because this is the theme, and I know I say it all the time, you must take the best player on the board, which happened to be Jelani Woods. But if we're realistically looking at it, if you want to be like, okay, there's a linebacker that I like here, there's a cornerback, or someone else, okay, I think that that's where you have the conversation and say, okay, if we feel like we can get Jalen Weidermeyer in the late, with our 5th round picks, our 6th round selection, go for it. But I'm not going to sit here and, just let this out. But another thing that I would consider doing, and we'll get ready to end it up here, don't be shy to trade one of those 5th round selections for a player. Don't be shy to do that. I think that if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you can get a couple key pieces in here that you don't, they don't do very well in the 5th round. So to have 4 selections there, you can really move some stuff around. But that's here saying we're there. That was a 4-round mock draft, excuse me. Here are the players. Tell me what you think. If you like it, by all means, make sure to leave a like. On top of that, go ahead and say who you would take in a 4-round mock draft. And I'll catch you guys later. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Bye-bye.